Governor Scott had a rough week, to put it mildly. His candidate for Republican State Chairwoman, Leslie Dewar, was defeated by freshman State Representative Blaise Ngolia. This never happens. Almost always, the governor is considered the titular head of his party or her party. The governors always, it seems, get their way as to who is elected, the actual chairman of the party. What happened?
It's kind of remarkable when you think about how much success the Republican Party had over this last election cycle. I mean, they won virtually everything, and now they are getting rid of the chair who was, at least at the back end of that process, was in charge of the, or at least ostensibly in charge of the party. There's a lot of discussion about the grassroots of the party kind of getting their backs up a little bit, if you will, about sort of a top-down approach from Scott and his allies to trying to keep Leslie Dewar as chair. That essentially, Scott was supporting her, and a lot of the sort of top echelon of the party were supporting her, but there was concern from the grassroots that this was all too top-down, and that somebody from the, again, the grassroots needed to be in the position of chairman. I think it's caught a lot of people by surprise, and it's already sent major waves through the party. Immediately after Ngolia was elected the other day, Justin Johnson, who was the executive director of the party, resigned.
And Ngolia has made certain moves since he was elected, correct? To, I guess, clarify his position, reinforce the strength of his position. What has he done?
Well, for instance, he immediately brought in David Johnson, who's a longtime Republican consultant and former executive director of the party, to help with the transition. He brought in another gentleman named Pavel Ideas, who's also a longtime Republican hand, to help with the transition. But it's pretty clear that they're not going to keep around a lot of the people who have been there over the past couple of years. And the party was structured in a lot of ways, or at least it appeared to be, focused, I won't say almost exclusively, but very heavily on Governor Scott's reelection. That's the kind of people that were in there were focused heavily on his reelection. It looks like a lot of those people are going to be gone, and so I think we're in a real transition stage. The other thing that's lurking out there is the 2016 presidential race, and Florida's going to play an important role in that, both in the primary as well as in the general election. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out, because they're going to put a party infrastructure in place to try to win Florida after losing the last two presidential elections here.
Well, another issue that is causing a controversy around the governor and also around the cabinet involved the departure of former FDLE Commissioner Gerald Bailey. I think it started back in December, but the question is, was he fired or did he resign? And he's been saying lately that he was fired in a kind of a rude manner, and mixed signals from the cabinet. What's the story?
This was kind of bizarre. In the middle of December, all of a sudden the governor's office puts out a press release saying Gerald Bailey, is leaving as FDLE commissioner. He'd been there about a decade, and he's being replaced by Rick Swearengen, who was the Capitol Police director. It caught everybody off guard. I mean, we all knew as the governor moved into his second term, there were going to be agency heads that were out. But we did not, I don't think anybody was talking about Gerald Bailey being out. It was kind of calm until last week, and it went to the cabinet. Governor Scott and the cabinet met, and they had to confirm Swearengen as the new FDLE commissioner. At that time, Governor Scott made some comments about Gerald Bailey resigning. The Tampa Bay Times and Miami Herald, to their credit, called Gerald Bailey, and he flat out said the governor was a liar. He said that he didn't resign; he was forced out, and that the governor's aides basically gave him no choice. So that has set off back and forth and quite a bit of disclosures about things that have gone on with the Scott administration. One of which Bailey has again been reported as saying is that the governor's aides wanted to use he and FDLE for political purposes during the campaign this past year. The FDLE is supposed to be ostensibly an independent agency in the sense that it needs to be able to investigate state agencies. It needs to be able to investigate various things that it really can't be tied to one politician necessarily or one administration. It's supposed to have some distance. An example, right now the FDLE is in charge of investigating inmate deaths in the state prison system. And there's a lot of scrutiny of that whole department the Department of Corrections at this point. Well, if the FDLE is too closely tied to the Scott administration, will it have the independence to come down on the Department of Corrections if it finds things wrong? So, I mean, that's an example of why there's supposed to be some distance.
Well, I guess a question would be, does this story have legs, or is it about over? Do you know? Do you have a sense of it?
Hard to tell. A little bit hard to tell, but one thing when you have somebody like Gerald Bailey who's been around for a long time and knows a lot of secrets and a lot of it's hard to tell whether there's going to be other disclosures. One of the other things that's come out of this is the FDLE commissioner is supposed to be approved by the cabinet as well as the governor. The three cabinet members, Chief Financial Officer Jeff Atwater, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Agriculture Commissioner Adam Putnam, have looked sort of out of the loop on this whole process. At first they sort of indicated they, were going along with the governor and that Gerald Bailey was a great guy. But then once this backlash started, they have kind of tried to backtrack a little bit. So there's a lot of questions about whether they were, on the ball with this issue while Bailey was getting pushed out the door. And so there's a lot of ramifications to this, political as well as, the FDLE doing the things it does, there's, they need, if there's any potential conflicts with law enforcement, that could be a real problem going down the road.
Thank you, Jim. For more news about Florida politics and government, visit the Advances section of our website.